Let's talk now, though, to Ross Clark, columnist at The Sun. Big piece in there today with the picture that we've been running for ages here, a couple of days ago on Saturday. French officers looking on as various boats, about 19 of them, left the shores of northern France to come to this country, despite the fact that we've given £480 million to the French in recent months. I think it might be even more than that in total. Ross Clark, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
I think, you know, because the Tories gave a bucket load of money to the French as well, didn't they? About half a billion quid. I mean, we're probably getting close to £1 billion we've sent them. And we basically got nothing in return apart from thousands and thousands of migrants.
Yeah, well, this was a deal that was done by Rishi Sunak in 2023, whereby the French were supposed to double the number of border guards patrolling the beaches from 400 to 800. So you've got these 800 guards supposed to be patrolling the beaches, stopping the boats from leaving, but there seems to be a fatal flaw in their rules of engagement. They're not allowed to enter the water to go and stop the boats. So the people smugglers have developed a new tactic whereby they just push the boats a few yards offshore, and the migrants wade out to the boats, and hence the border guards just stand there watching or filming the occasion for posterity. But you have to ask, you know, well, what incentive do the French really have to stop these boats?
Right.
Because, you know, every migrant that crosses the channel, that's one fewer migrant that the French have to fund, they have to process. So, you know, it obviously suits the French to accept the money and then pretend to be stopping the migrants.
Right.
And, you know, since this money was put up by first the Tories and now Labour, I mean, the proportion of migrants crossing the channel who were actually intercepted and turned back, that has fallen. So, you know, all this extra money from UK taxpayers has achieved absolutely nothing.
No, exactly right. Well, I remember talking about this, as we all have been, for years, basically. But I remember sometime, I think 2 years ago or so, when the Sunak government was still in power, and there was a lot of talk, and I think there was a French election coming up, and a lot of those constituencies along the Normandy coast are obviously quite big on fishing. And the fishermen, obviously, and the communities there are not particularly keen on being overrun by a load of migrants. And so the best thing that any French politician can do is to ensure that the migrants don't hang around there very long, and in fact they come to Britain, because there's no political, you know, sort of capital to be made out of saving the migrants from leaving and keeping them in Normandy.
Well, I mean, if the French genuinely wanted to stop the boats, I mean, it would be fantastically easy to do it. You just have an agreement with the UK that any migrant who crosses the channel to try and claim asylum in Britain is not eligible to do that. They get returned straight back to France.
Yeah.
You know, another safe country. That's what the rules of international treaties on refugees are, you know, are based around. This idea that you claim asylum in the first safe country that you reach. And, you know, obviously Britain has a moral duty to help refugee problems in other parts of the world. But, you know, that doesn't mean we should accept asylum applications for people who've crossed here from another safe country.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, the French won't agree to take back, you know, people who've crossed the channel in this way, because it suits them to palm the problem off on Britain rather than have to deal with it themselves.
Exactly. But it's worse than that, I think, as well, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, no matter how many times people come to Europe and apply for asylum, some of them end up in Britain having been failed in their asylum claims in, say, I don't know, Denmark, Sweden, Germany, France, and somehow, despite the fact that they've been turned down and they've been not granted asylum in those countries, they somehow end up here.
Well, yeah, Britain is looking, you know, a soft touch on asylum claims, because the proportion of successful asylum claims is very much higher in Britain than it is in France. So you can see there's an incentive to cross the channel, particularly if you've had a asylum application turned down in another European country. You know, get to Britain, you might have more luck. We've got a softer touch. We've got judges who seem to be more inclined to interpret the European Convention on Human Rights in a very migrant-friendly way, if we can put it like that. And
We can.
yeah, I mean, there are other reasons why migrants want to come to Britain as well. We don't have ID cards, and we have a more open labour market. And of course, the English language is more spoken around the world than is French or German, for example. But the ease, the success rate of asylum applications in Britain is one of those incentives.
Yes, and it's way higher than anywhere else in Europe as well. But also, you talk about the ECHR, the Sun's written a leader on the same page as your column today, saying, why isn't Britain among a group of 9 European countries calling for urgent reform of the European Court of Human Rights? And that's a very good question. Why is Britain not joining Italy, Denmark and a whole bunch of other places to actually change the influence of the ECHR and to change the way that we are supposedly adhering to it?
Yeah, I mean, so all these other European countries, they finally had enough of the European Convention on Human Rights, the way it is preventing deportations of criminals, terrorists, and other illegal migrants. And yet, Starmer tells us that, we have every right to be angry. He wants to stop the boats and everything. Well, here was an opportunity for him to join these other countries in pressing for reform of the ECHR, and he hasn't done so. And, it really speaks volumes about, who he is. And, basically, he doesn't trample on human rights lawyers because he is a human rights lawyer. He's one of their kind. And he has this sort of fatal attraction to anything that's sort of, connected with European law, human rights. He cannot bring himself to say when something has gone too far and it needs to be reformed.
Yeah, he really can't. Just one other final thing before I let you go, Ross. Net zero in the papers today. According to Willie Walsh, the former boss of British Airways, now Chief Executive of the International Air Transport Association, says the soaring cost of sustainable aviation fuel, as well as various other net zero targets being imposed on us by the European Union and by the UK government, it's going to cost something like £2.2 billion a year extra for airline passengers to travel around the world, because we are going to have to be picking up the tab once again for this net zero nuttiness.
Yes, well, this is sustainable aviation fuel, which is a bit of an umbrella term for quite a wide range of fuels, really. Yeah. At the cheaper end, we've got, fuel that's manufactured from used chip fat and so on, which was used to power that Virgin plane which flew into the Atlantic last year or the year before. And at the other end, we've got entirely synthetic fuels which are manufactured from hydrogen and carbon dioxide and so on, and they are fantastically expensive. So something like 7 times, they cost 7 times as much as normal airline fuel. Now the trouble is that the sustainable aviation fuel has been sort of sold to us on the basis of the sort of cheaper end of the market, if you like, from used fat from chip shops, but there are only so many chip shops in the world, of course, and they're not going to power the entire airline industry. And if we are going to switch to sustainable aviation fuel, we're going to need those extremely expensive synthetic fuels, which are going to push the cost of flying sky high, I'm afraid, because the cost of fuel is a very, very significant part of the.
And why is it so expensive then, that particular kind of fuel?
Well, you've got to manufacture it first from hydrogen. Now, for it to be sustainable, it's got to be green hydrogen. It's got to be manufactured from electrolysis of water. And that technology is very much in its infancy. It's not developing at the speed many people had hoped it would develop. And, it promises to be, it's just simply very expensive.
Right.
So that's part of the process. Then of course you've got to manufacture the fuel itself using carbon dioxide as well, and so the whole process is just very much more expensive than simply tapping airline fuel out the ground and refining crude oil to produce.
I mean,
airline
amazing,
fuel.
isn't it? How it would actually be cheaper just to do what we've been doing for years and years and years and years, just carry on doing it. But there we are. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Ross Clark, columnist at The Sun.